Hi, and welcome to the Handbag Designer 101 podcast with your host, Emily Blumenthal, handbag designer expert and handbag fairy godmother, where we cover everything about handbags from making, marketing, designing, and talking to handbag designers and industry experts about what it takes to make a successful handbag. Welcome, Nancy Rhodes of Alternew, to Handbag Designer 101, the podcast. Welcome, Nancy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. This is amazing.
So we became LinkedIn friends. I hang out on LinkedIn often. I think I feel more comfortable there. Actually, they're in Substack now. Those are my two safe places because people are much kinder there and very much into being supportive. But I think you connected with me, and then I went down a rabbit hole looking at what you do and was like, wow, we need to have her on. So why don't you start from the way back, like how you ended up into the industry, and then we can absolutely talk about your amazing brand, which I'm just blown away that it's just so cool.
Yeah. Well, you did ask me to go way back, so we will go back to my 3-year-old self who was dying to be a designer. I did art classes. I was always kind of drawing and wanting to be part of the industry. My babysitter invited me to her, college fashion show, and this green velvet ethereal cape floated down the runway. And I'm like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. And I was lucky enough to have parents who let me do these art classes and supported my journey. And somewhere in my teen years, I decided I wanted to focus on footwear. Why I thought I should niche myself at that age, I don't know. And so spent most of my, early years in retail, learning the consumer experience. Like now I can go back and really value what that experience was.
Where did you work in retail? Because
the day I was able to, I started working at Nordstrom. And then, so Nordstrom, I've worked in kids' shoes. I've worked in the BP. I've worked in different apparel departments. And then when I finished school, going into kind of another program, I did my bachelor's at University of Oregon, art and business. And then I started an associate's program at FIDM in California and was working at Neiman Marcus. So I had worked at Neiman Marcus in San Diego, and so was learning more about this higher end. So now looking back, understanding the retail experience for a Nordstrom customer versus a Neiman Marcus customer. And now we'll get into the actual being a footwear designer. So I did get into footwear designing. I started with a company called 𝐃𝐞𝐬𝐢. I met someone, it was Charles Malka and David Malka, their brothers. One of the sons had his own company in Beverly Hills. I started working there. I was building kind of my first example of what private label looks like, what white labeling looks like. So first shoe ever designed was a cowboy boot mule with an embossed PU upper, and it ended up at BCBG outlets. So that was a very exciting moment for me. And then was building product for Rave, which was a kind of a contempo casuals or wet seal to anybody from the millennial age of the time. And then finally found myself in New York, started working at Kenneth Cole, was building product not only for their Reaction Kenneth Cole, but product for Target and Marshalls and Ross and Burlington. Then went into some bigger licensees, was building products then for Costco and BJ's, really getting to this point where the opportunities were more lucrative. The amount of pairs I was making was higher. And we can get into the stories of economies of scale versus small patch.
You're talking all of my language.
That's a conversation for a different day.
Well, if anybody's watching this on YouTube, I'm currently at FIT in a classroom with a mobile light. So if all of a sudden it goes dark, my light ran out of juice. So FYI, because the lighting in the classrooms are never that good. You should see it when I teach. I'm putting on a dog and pony show. It's funny, like you've touched on so many cool things where I always say someone gave me sage advice saying you'd never open up a clothing store if you didn't know how to shop, and understanding how to shop for your customer and what they're looking for and the makings of what buyers look for. That mindset is gold, and having that opportunity from an early age to be able to then have a sense of what will sell and what won't sell, and designing into trends versus not designing into trends, and which retail stores would take a certain color, a certain style, a certain material, a certain price point versus another. And all of those things, especially going back to this term economies of scale, which, I use the Costco versus Walgreens, that, when you look at the unit price, economies of scale, the more you produce, the less it costs. And that's the problem with smaller brands emerging and independent designers, because they lack the orders, they lack the ability, they get stuck in that circle of like, okay, I can't make my prices lower because I don't have the orders to support it. And how am I going to do it? So all of those things are so important, even though, footwear, handbags are adjacent. And anybody who has worked with any footwear brand, bags are designed based on the hero shoe. That's just how it goes. Any license, any partnership. I know, having worked with enough footwear brands that have handbags, it's like, okay, here's our best-selling shoe, design a bag collection around it. And it's one of those key points, actually, that I tell designers that look at what the biggest trend is, look at what's being sold in footwear, look at what's being sold in auto, pull the color from auto, pull the trend from footwear, and look at where the inspiration should come from the runway. So
one of the biggest brands I worked for, where I learned about kind of licensees and really understanding the assortment, was I worked for Beyoncé's Dairy On. And so Miss Tina Knowles was the creative director. And I worked a lot with the handbag designers because, especially, in different environments, there are certain like demographics that prefer like a matching bag and shoe, and then certain ones that don't. So we are really connected, building these like aligned footwear to handbags, same colors, same patterns, taking the same hardware from one to the other. So it was really fun to do. And yes, I did get to meet Beyoncé a couple of times. I did get to go to her childhood home one time
Texas?
in Houston. Yes. And Miss Tina could not be in New York, that I was flying in from San Diego from the footwear license to do the assortment. She could not be there. So we went to Houston and we presented the collection on her pool table. And it just so happened that Beyoncé had like some sort of pyrotechnics incident at her concert. So she was there. And so she walks into the room, and I kid you not, there was like a fan blowing on her. It was invisible. I didn't see it, but like something was making her like just float into the room. And she was wearing this house dress, which I call a house dress, but it probably was more than my rent. And she was barefoot. And I'm like, how is this my life? My sales rep and I were just like standing there like, okay, we're totally cool right now. This is fine. But it was an experience, to say the least.
Did she look over the assortment?
She did. She said things like, cool, love it. Right. Yes. Beyoncé has worn my shoes.
That should be your new tagline. So
don't worry, it gets said a lot.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So at this point, you've worked with a multitude of retail. You've done both brand side, retail side. How are you able to continue to, especially even from a lifestyle perspective, to support yourself? What put you into the place of saying like, okay, I've done this long enough, or I think I found a void in the market? Because I'd love to hear what took you to launching Alternew, because it's just so fascinating. What was that aha moment?
It's a funny story. Some people say they're like the reluctant entrepreneur. I actually say that not only did I follow the breadcrumbs, but I also had a pitchfork behind me, just pushing me into this direction. It didn't feel so much as reluctant as like required. So I really strongly believe that our community and the people around us help support our growth. And so I ran into a friend from Kenneth Cole. I hadn't seen her in 7 years. We got on a train together to Newark, and she said she was working at this university. It was GCNYC at the time. It's now been taken over. Now it's IENYC. And the UN was giving out grants because it was aligned with their SDGs. So it was a master's in sustainability. Spoke with her. 3 weeks later, I was sitting down at my first master's class. Never planned on getting a master's, was like, continuing to grow my own experience in the industry. And it just, from day one, I was like, this is the right place, the right time. And again, was a year later doing an entrepreneurship class. Everyone would say to me, you know what you should do? You should build a sustainable footwear brand. And the first thing I would say back to them is there's no such thing. The infrastructure doesn't exist. I do not have a science background. I cannot build the infrastructure and the hardware needed to support what will help create monomaterials and recycling and all of these things, which is exciting to see what's being done in the space, but it was not the space I could support at the time, at least.
And I think what a lot of people don't know, that it's virtually impossible to have something that is 100% vegan. Like either the glue, whether the upper, whether the interior, it's something somewhere. It's like saying, to be 100% vegan, you're going to end up having something with eggs in it, whether you know it or not. Like one way or another, like that bread that you ate that you thought was vegan, guess what? It wasn't. And you still ate it. Like it is almost impossible to develop a product that's 100% without some sort of animal-based product. I applaud those who do. I really do. But it's something that you have to do that cost-benefit analysis of the time value of money it's going to take you to put it together, in addition to trying to get the customer to pay for it. So right. I so, in a perfect world, it would be amazing. But I just think it's hard and expensive.
Right. And there's a lot about looking at life cycle assessment. I've been to China over 50 times. I've been in factories. I've seen great factories and I've seen terrible factories. And I've been to the depths of China and like the more like where great product is made and where you go to make the product that you just hope doesn't fall off as it like walks down the street. And what I found was it's all about sourcing and PETA aside, if we look at the life cycle assessment of footwear, the environmental impact of a well-sourced animal product that lasts for a really long time actually has a longer lifetime value. And I say that by years, not by days, like years and years and years over a
chemically made product
that is chemically made, that is vegan. And I do applaud the brands like Stella McCartney that are really doing the research and development. And it's that bowling pin strategy where you're creating something at its top so that it can have the development it needs to get to the masses. And if you're looking at what that looks like, say what you will, look at Elon Musk and Tesla. The goal was always to make a Tesla be as cost effective as a Civic, but he couldn't get there unless he started by making it super expensive to build the R&D to get to the point where it's not accessible. Yeah. It's more of like financial literacy and understanding business than it is like, who do you like, who do you don't like, who do you not like?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people also don't know is that any chemically treated so-called vegan product has such a short life cycle that whatever goods are left over can never be really used as dead stock. And typically they're burned, they're disposed of, they don't disintegrate, and they just sit there, landfills for life. So I think that's
about like biodegradable versus recyclable. And if something's biodegradable, but when it seeps into the soil, is it actually creating more toxins than had it just been made to be recyclable or be in a landfill? There's a lot of different questions. I think the good news is that there's a lot of awareness and there's been enough questions asked to support really getting to the core of these solutions, where it's for the last couple of decades, it's been a lot of kind of spaghetti against a wall. Not to say anything is wrong with that, because start somewhere. And so there's plenty of pioneers in this space that today the ideas that they had wouldn't be thought of. They would be greenwashing. But at that time, they were so innovative. And so for me, it's really important to kind of respect the history of how we got to where we are, both good and bad, because we wouldn't be where we are without those people.
Yeah, I totally agree.
If you ever wanted to start a handbag line and didn't know where to start, this is for you.
Living proof that independent designers can make it big.
Emily Blumenthal is one prime example.
If you had dreams of becoming a handbag designer and didn't know where to start, this is for you. If you have a handbag brand and are in need of strategy and direction, this is for you. I'm Emily Blumenthal, handbag fairy godmother and handbag designer expert, and this is Handbag Designer 101, the masterclass. Over the next 10 classes, I will break down everything you need to know how to make, market, and manufacture a handbag. Broken down for you that you'll not only skip steps in that handbag building process, but also save money in that learning curve. For the past 20 years, I've been teaching at the top fashion universities in New York City, created the Handbag Awards, and also the Handbag Designer 101 podcast. I'm going to show you like I have countless brands from sketch to sample to shelf, whether you're just starting out and don't know where to begin, or even if you have a handbag line and just need some strategic direction, the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass is just for you. So let's get started, and you will be the creator of the next it bag. Join me, Emily Blumenthal, with the Handbag Designer 101 Masterclass.
So I want to get to, you started taking these classes. You had this aha moment. I assume you were still day jobbing whilst doing both. Yeah. And then what brought you to this idea of saying, you know what, I'm going to create this network of alterations, tailors, seamstresses, seamsters.
Yeah,
to make a
fashion care specialist.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like a flight attendant versus stewardess, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny because that was a long whiteboarding session of like, what do we call, because a tailor has a stigma of like being a man and being this, and a seamstress is like, is that the female version, or is that just someone who is sewing versus tailoring? And so it was
because one's low end and one's high end. Exactly.
Right. And it's, so how do you support an entire industry? And there really isn't, like a service provider would be the easiest way to describe it, but it doesn't really speak to these people, our specialists, and what they're doing. But I was in my master's program with a friend of mine who I now refer to as my guru and my muse, because we were having this conversation. We'd always have these conversations around the industry. She still is at a very, very large corporation in innovation, and told me when she was in college, she would do alterations as a way to make extra cash. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time where now I can say it very easily, like products as a service, goods as a service. How do we support the future of this industry that I love so much, that you love so much, without making more product, but still providing a way for brands to profit, for the industry to profit? And it was through alterations and repairs. Very quickly, like tested out an LLC, used it as a thesis. So my thesis was democratizing fashion customization, did a ton of research in the space, what kind of businesses had been made, what were other circular business models, et cetera. And it was really the green light I needed to build my business. So that was the start of me building a mobile tailoring business. And that's not what we do today, but it was my first foray into supporting this industry.
I just know a lot of people who are in the restaurant business started with mobile trucks to have almost proof of concept. So I think
it's actually funny you say that, because the way we speak to it, and as you say, restaurants, like if we look at this industry as a category, look at OpenTable, look at ZocDoc, look at Airbnb. And I know I haven't said what Alternew is, and I will do that in 1 second, but they all took antiquated, fragmented industries and modernized them through technology. That is what we are doing for the fashion care space, which is just the next industry that is ripe for innovation. And fashion cannot fully be circular without care and repair. And they are a wildly underserved part of the industry. And that's what we're trying to help navigate and support and grow.
So what exactly is Alternew at this point?
So at Alternew, we have a tech solution that helps brands see into the after sales journey of their customer by bringing alterations and repairs back to the consumer journey. Meaning that a brand now has a way to digitize the alterations experience. They're getting a tool where they can match their customers one for one with a vetted network of local tailor shops, whether that's in store, online, at concessions. Tailors get access to a full POS system. Think of like Toast. Toast, you go to restaurants, a Toast for tailors. They're getting access to operational efficiencies, ways to manage their businesses more effectively, and being able to support their customers through modern tools like digital ticketing, digital notifications, inventory management. So on both sides of this guided marketplace, everybody is being supported. So it's a win for brands, it's a win for tailors, and most of all, it's a win for consumers. Because the idea for consumers is, how do you support, like you have consumers today who very much are like, I go to a store, I buy something new, and then I go and get it tailored immediately. One of the things we talk about is how clothes are mass produced, bodies are not, right? Like we know that a brand's top customers are the ones who go to a store, love it so much that they're willing to buy it and getting altered. So not only does that help you know who your best customers are because they're willing to spend the money, but spend more money to love your clothing. But second of all, talk about inclusivity. What is the best way to support inclusivity? Saying, we don't care what size you are, we're going to support making sure this fits perfectly on you. And so it really speaks to a brand, not just in the social impact of social good, environmental good, but it's truly a return for them. It's customer acquisition, it's customer retention, it's diverting returns. So there is a bottom line reason for them to offer these services. But there's also a people, planet, profit, right? They're supporting people, they're supporting the planet, and they're supporting their profits.
That must have been tricky because I know one of the founders of, I can't even remember, one of those food delivery services, one of the biggest though that started in New York. And I remember him telling me how difficult it was to get restaurants to become technical, to incorporate that in, because it was like the last thing and then the bottom of their list of things to deal with, saying, I'm a restaurant, I'm not technology, don't make me be both.
It's funny you say that because one of the reasons why we've brought brands into the equation is because it's something they really need. And I think for tailors and for service providers, they're looking for new business. And so we actually started as, once I had seen that mobile tailoring was an enabler or a feature, not a scaled business, then we went into a marketplace. How do we connect customers to tailors? What we realized is in going to tailors, they were saying, like, I can barely manage the business I have. I'm not able to deal with, I'm either cobbling together a bunch of tech stacks to make sure that I manage my business, or I'm still going on pen and paper and I don't want to add something to it. And so that's when we decided to build tech for tailors. Okay, let's support how we can be this Toast for tailors. This Open Table started up as, management for restaurants and Open Table for tailors. And that they wanted, but there was not enough incentive. It wasn't a big enough carrot for them to adopt. Same thing with restaurants. Once we started speaking with brands and saying, hey, we have this network. And again, being in the footwear industry, having my master's in sustainability, being in New York, my network is, executives at fashion brands in sustainability. And they were like, this is such a great way to support our circularity initiatives, our sustainability initiatives. Great. Then we went back to the tailors and said, hey, we can get you new business. In fact, you don't even need to pay for the tech. What we'll just do is any business we bring you, we take a small commission on. Any additional business that customer brings you is yours. So it becomes like a finder's fee for them. So it's not just passive leads. It's genuine lead conversion for them. So they're only paying for the business they're getting. And if they do a good job, well, that customer now has used it as a discovery platform and gets new business. So
and
it became kind of which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and that's what we do.
So I know this is right now very apparel focused, but we were talking about before that, obviously bringing it back to handbags, that this is something that will be on the docket moving forward because, handbags need care. 𝐀𝐞𝐬𝐢𝐠𝐧 was very clever, being, as far as I'm concerned, steps ahead of thinking. And now each brand I know Zara is trying to bring reused product back in stores, so it's not going on Depop or any of those places. So I think this is an opportunity for all brands to say, okay, you don't need to go and resell it, just fix it and continue to enjoy it. So that goes for handbags, that goes for everything. Handbags, as we said, typically are fixed by cobblers, shoemakers, and so forth.
Not only that, but leather jackets.
Exactly, leather jackets, because the sewing machines are different. They need to have the different needles, the different machines. I'm assuming that's on the docket for the future.
What we hope to support is the continued use of soft goods and textiles, right? And then beyond that into jewelry care, because the idea is we're building an operating system to support the fashion industry and accelerating to a circular economy. And in order to do that, you need to support the easiest access to care and repair for your goods and the things that you wear from head to toe. And it's so hard to find one thing to another. And there are, other emerging players in the industry supporting these services that are all kind of helping us to validate the market and support all of our growth. But we're very excited because we were just named a top 3 finalist for a globally recognized award. So the next few months we'll get mentorship and networking and visibility. It's officially coming out on December 19th. So I'll be able to share right then.
Okay. Nancy, how can we find you, follow you, and get more information on Alternew?
Yes. Instagram, Alternew_official, LinkedIn, either Alternew or Nancy Rhodes. We're a B2B solution. So there's a lot more on LinkedIn than there is on Instagram. But as we were talking, we're definitely looking for social media ambassadors and support to help us bring our vision to life. And feel free to connect with me and share your thoughts, ideas, support. Always looking for feedback.
Fabulous. Nancy, thank you so much. It was great having you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review and follow us on every single platform at Handbag Designer. Thanks so much. See you next time.